welcome back to my podcast for episode 3 of Virtual Run with Lexi. I'm Lexi, and I work at Run for Your Life in Charlotte, North Carolina. So I'm excited for this next guest. He is different than my first two. I know him through when I was in nursing school, and he actually, I met him at Run for Your Life, so everything leads back to Run for Your Life. I met him when he was a customer there, and he's a cardiologist with Atrium Health, but also an ultra-distance runner. So anyway, his life involves two things that I think are really neat. I just loved cardiology and that whole topic in nursing school, and I love running. So anyway, naturally, we had fun catching up. So I hope you enjoy this time I spent with him. I think there's a lot of good tidbits in there for you about running right now with the COVID-19 pandemic, but then also just some fun facts about him and his life. So thanks so much for being with us, and we'll see you later. Bye. Welcome to my episode 3 of Virtual Run with Lexi, a little video podcast, or I don't even know what I'm supposed to be calling this, but basically just conversations with people I think are really neat in the Charlotte area. Who have running in their background and then other really cool things. So my third guest is a physician. He's a cardiologist for Atrium Health. His name is Dr. Theodore Frank. Welcome, Dr. Frank.
Thanks for having me.
You bet. So maybe tell our listeners maybe a little bit about why you think you're a relevant guest specifically to my podcast.
Well, I'll let the listeners determine that. But I am a cardiologist for Atrium Health, as you said. I'm a heart failure transplant specialist, and so I think I've some insights into caring for patients, and also sort of been a long time runner locally. I'm getting older and slower, but still running nonetheless.
I don't think you're that slow, though. I still think you're really speedy. I guess sort of first questions, what landed you into cardiology? I feel like I remember bits and pieces about how you ended up in medicine. Maybe share a little bit about that.
Sure. I was an English major in college and became a high school English teacher and basketball coach after college, and was either going to get a graduate degree in literature and become a college professor or go to medical school to become a psychiatrist. So I chose the latter path. The problem is when I went to medical school and did psychiatry rotations, it just didn't really grab me. So I sort of had an immediate attraction to both cardiology and, for reasons that aren't entirely clear even to me, heart failure transplant. I loved everything about it kind of from the get-go. So ended up going to medical school, 4 years at the University of Pennsylvania, then did residency in medicine at Yale, then did a fellowship in cardiology at Yale, and then did a heart failure transplant fellowship specifically at University of Pennsylvania, and landed here in Charlotte in the summer of 1998, and have been here ever since.
So you were, when you were in medical school, you were a little further along in life than some of your colleagues or fellow students, is that right? Or
yeah, it's interesting. I think a lot of students nowadays will take a year or two off doing research or other things. I think it makes you more of an attractive candidate. Back when I went to medical school, I started in 1988. That was not as popular, but the medical school I went to, I think that probably gave you a little bit of preference in a sense, because they wanted people with some life experience, and mine wasn't in the sciences. It was as an English teacher, but I really wanted to I didn't know what I wanted to do. And medical school is obviously a big investment, both financially and otherwise. So I'm glad I took the time off. It really helped me. It's funny, most of my friends in medical school, by happenstance, happened to have taken some time off as well. So it really worked out well.
Yeah, I feel like I either read something or somebody told me. I don't remember how I receive information anymore because it's coming at me all the time. But somebody was saying, like, folks who are in corporate jobs now actually seek out candidates who have more like arts and liberal arts type of background, because they kind of come at, solutions for problems or scenarios differently than somebody who's more, I don't know, kind of type A business. Anyway, I don't know.
Yeah, I think life experience is really important. And you gotta, it's hard to know. Look, in Europe, people generally go sort of after high school, you take tests, and that kind of determines your career path to a certain extent. And they start much earlier, and there's something to be said for that. But I think there's a lot to be said for sort of sorting out what you want to do. I think in medicine, there's a lot of things you can do.
Mm-hmm.
Um, you could be a bench researcher, you could take care of patients, but like I said, I think it's once you start down that path, you better be sure that it's the right path for you to the extent that you can.
Right. All right. So maybe silly questions, but I don't know. I think they're relevant. What do you love most about your job, and what do you like least? And I guess there might be some current events that influence your answers.
Yeah. What I like most is I love learning about people's lives. I love trying to be a resource for people. I mean, we deal with patients who have pretty serious heart problems,
Mm-hmm.
or a variety of other problems that are serious, that impact their quality of life and length of life. So I like being able to not only help them medically, of course, but more than that, kind of be a part of their life. That's always what's attracted me. I think that's part of what attracted me to heart failure or transplant to begin with, because almost by definition, you're going to be involved in life-altering decisions.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what I like the most. So both, I love the medicine part of it. The science is fascinating to me, but I also love just getting involved in people's lives and sort of learning about who they are. I love talking with people. So for me, it's really human interest. Um, Again, I love the medicine part of what we do, but it's human interest. And I think my colleagues, and I'm talking about not just my physician colleagues who are fantastic, but my nurses, the advanced practice providers, social workers, pharmacists, medical office assistants, everybody, I think they go into this for a reason. And we have just a great group. So that's part of it as well. I think the camaraderie and sort of the unified vision for what we want for our patients, it's really life affirming. That sort of segues a little bit into some of the downside. It can be emotionally really difficult.
Mm-hmm.
I've been doing this a while. I think I'm better at separating sort of my personal life from my professional life than I was when I first started out. But it can be really hard. Obviously, you lose people you've known for a long time.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's difficult. I think some of the logistical aspects of taking call and being called at all hours can be difficult. But I will say that getting up at 3 a.m. And leaving, my bed is there. At the time when you have to get up, you're tired and all that. But then once I get to the hospital, I'm good. I mean, I'm there to do what I need to do. So there's a double-edged sword to it. But it's endlessly fascinating, that's for sure.
Yeah. I guess the next question, just because it is relevant and you have firsthand experience with COVID-19, is there anything, I know we've now been in it for a good bit and everybody's taking in lots of information, but is there any information or insights you feel like you have that listeners might not know that would be to their benefit?
Hard to say. We here at Atrium Health have a number of patients. I've not directly treated any patients. We have had patients who we were concerned at COVID-19, but I've not directly treated patients. But I get dozens of emails a day, and we have tons of conversations in our group, and have had tons of meetings about how to prepare.
Mm-hmm.
I think everybody knows that patients of comorbidities are at higher risk, and that includes patients of heart disease and lung disease, and people who are older. But young people can absolutely get sick. And young people tend to have a little more vigorous immune systems. There can be something called a cytokine storm that you can see in association with the infection that causes elaboration of all these hormones in your body and other things that can cause people to be very, very sick. So while it's true if you're younger and healthier, you're less likely to get really sick. And for some people, it can be just kind of feeling cruddy for a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
But, make no mistake, young people can die from this. And I think we've all heard stories of that. So it's something to take very, very seriously.
Right. Let's see. Just general advice. Do you have any, aside from there being a pandemic going on? So for our younger listeners or newer runners, any just general like health, wellness advice that you'd have, whether they're runners or not?
Yeah, I think I think one of the things that I talk most about with my patients is lifestyle.
Mm-hmm.
I think for runners, presumably, I would say on average, have probably better lifestyles, but certainly that doesn't apply to everybody. But we have access to tremendous technology, and we do heart transplant and put in heart pumps and all this stuff. But I frankly spend more time with my patients talking about lifestyle. What does that mean? It means healthy eating, avoiding things that have a lot of sugar and other things that have very little in the way of nutritional value, and getting exercise. And it does not have to be running. It doesn't really matter. I could talk forever about sort of the benefits of running and some of the downsides of running, particularly people who have been running long distances for very long periods of time. That's a whole different conversation in terms of some of the potential downsides from a cardiac standpoint. But what's clear from the literature is that exercise is beneficial, and it doesn't particularly matter how you do that exercise. But the general recommendations are at least 150 minutes a week, so say 30 minutes 5 days a week of some type of exercise where you're moving.
Mm-hmm.
Stationary bicycle, treadmill, walking outside. I think that is clear psychological and physiological benefits. So I think even in this, the COVID-19 pandemic, I think it's important for people to get outside. One common question is, can I get it just passing by people? And the answer is yes, you can. Probably more likely if someone sneezes directly in your face. There's been articles about the slipstream behind runners and bikers. Some of that's a little bit theoretic. We know that the virus is there, but some of the risk has to do with viral load. That's why healthcare providers are at such high risk, particularly the nurses, respiratory therapists who are on the very front lines.
Right.
It stands to reason if you take in a big load of virus, that's going to be worse. But if someone says, could I get it by passing somebody? The answer is you could. I think that's not that likely. So as long as you follow reasonable social distance practice, I think, it's okay to be outside. I myself am running outside. I feel like for me personally, everybody has to make their own determination. I think the benefits outweigh the risks, again, both from a psychological standpoint and a physiological standpoint. Exercise has multiple benefits, and I think for most runners, and I'm probably preaching to the choir, it just makes you feel better.
Right. Yeah, I had a coworker who said he had read something about running. I think you just talked about it, but that like 30 feet behind the person is now the recommended distance, or if you're running side by side, that you should be at least 6 feet. We probably have a lot of listeners who want like a definitive answer, and I know you can't give that, but if you had a running buddy, would you run with them right now? And if so, what would the physical setup look like?
Just to reduce my risk, I'm trying to only run with people who run slower than I do. just joking. I am running with my friends. We generally run side by side.
Mm-hmm.
Again, there is some inherent risk in that. We're trying to run in areas where you have a little more leeway. Some of the trails we run a lot up at university, where you have a little bit of leeway. You're going to pass people. And I think most people are reasonable. You try to sort of not get right next to them. I've certainly passed a few people who got angry that we were on the road. I think it has to be an individual decision. I think if you're going to be out walking your dog or walking or running, and you're going to get really, really angry if someone comes within a 6 feet distance of you, then you probably shouldn't be out there, because there are times it's just unavoidable.
Right.
I'm trying to run in the road if there's a group of people in front of me, but you also don't want to get hit by a car. I think you have to be you have to use your judgment. And I think most people are, appropriate and understand that you can't always be outside of 6 feet. And as far as the so-called slips, stream. I think we don't know. One of the problems with COVID-19 and a variety of other things in medicine is you can have sort of studies that say if there's a wind tunnel X number of feet, if you're a cyclist riding at certain miles per hour, it's 60 feet, and a runner running fast, it's 30 feet or whatever. But I think some of that is it's speculative because we don't really know, again, how much at risk that places you. Proximity is important. If you're with somebody in your home who has COVID-19, that's going to be a problem.
Right.
So I just think you have to use your judgment and do ultimately what you feel comfortable and what would make sense.
Right. Well, that's all helpful. Thank you. Another good sort of running slash your background question. And I've talked about it with you when I've chatted you, but talk a little bit about your thoughts on the kind of craze with the ketogenic diet specific to like distance running and why people might want to use that approach, why it might not be good, whatever your thoughts are.
Yeah. I think there was huge and continues to be significant interest in the ketogenic diet. And I think like a lot of things in medicine and are sort of under the general rubric of science, you have to evaluate it dispassionately. What I would say to people is say, I feel much better and do better with ketogenic diet. I think that's great. The evidence that I am aware of behind it improving your performance, it's a little bit spotty. I've read a lot about it. I think, there's some thought that maybe it's better for sort of longer distance runners. One of the concepts behind it is it sort of teaches your body to utilize fat. Fat is much more plentiful in your body in terms of resources. So you have roughly 2,000 calories of stored up energy in glycogen, which is in your liver and muscles and other places, whereas you have about 40,000 calories in fat. And so if you burn fat, and that's generally by by changing what you eat so that you're burning ketones and fat, and by it's probably best for people who run longer distances a little bit slower. Some people swear by it, but I think the literature is not entirely clear. When they've really done sort of careful studies, it's unclear whether it makes you faster in long distance events. But ultimately, I think it's like a lot of things. If people feel like they derive benefit, then I don't think there's a downside. I don't recommend it to my patients because I think it's really hard to follow. I mean, I think we all talk, when you talk about sort of weight loss and restricting carbohydrates, if you really want to be ketogenic, for most people, you have to be under 50 grams of carbohydrates. And if you look at any bar you eat or anything, that's difficult to do. Some people can do it. I've myself chosen not to do it because it's too onerous. But I think a lot of it's just based on sort of, if you feel better doing it, then by all means do it.
Yeah, just like, I don't know. For me, I don't know that'd be sustainable. I feel like you hear stories of significant weight loss, kind of like it's almost like an Atkins approach, right? Where you shed all this weight, but then once you reintroduce that carb, I don't know.
Yeah, what you hear about is when you do reintroduce the carbs, that people will really eat. But again, I think there are two issues. There's ketogenic diet for the athlete and ketogenic diet in general. What I generally recommend for my patients, I never recommend diets per se, because I think for exactly the reason you just outlined, that they're hard to sustain. Mm-hmm. So what I recommend is healthy eating, and there's a difference. Do something that you can, follow. So again, restricting, taking in a lot of things, calories that have no nutritional value, sugared sodas, things like that. It's very common. I'll talk with my patients and say, I can't lose weight. And they might be having 5 or 6 sugared sodas a day. Each sugared soda has somewhere between 10 and 11 teaspoons of sugar. So if you have 5 of those, you're having over 50 teaspoons of sugar. So carbohydrate restriction is helpful, things like that. So I think eating not so much fruit juices, but fruit is probably better than actual fruit juices. Sort of those general recommendations I find to be sort of better and easier to follow.
Yeah. So runners, we're funny, right? We find ways to rationalize probably some pretty unhealthy eating, maybe even drinking habits. So we might eat an entire pizza after a long run or a race because we feel like we deserve it, or a pint of Ben and
Right.
Jerry's. What are your thoughts about that? Is that terrible or permissible every once in a while, or
Now, I think
no?
it's fine every once in a while. I mean, in general, recommend moderation. If, as we all know with our Garmins, you burn a fair number of calories. I think if you want to, eat a pizza, go for it. Michael Wardian ran 262 plus miles over 63 hours and consumed like 4 pizzas and did all this other stuff. Now he's an unusual kind of guy, but
Right.
I think that's fine. I mean, I think runners can get diabetes and high blood pressure and coronary disease, etc., like anybody else can. So
Mhm.
having a healthy lifestyle does not sort of shield you from bad things. But I think as long as you're not doing that, every single day in terms of, gorging and things like that, I think it's generally fine.
Okay. Um, so this is a basic question for you personally. What keeps you running? It sounds like I mean, your days as a physician before COVID-19, I'm sure were long and arduous. What kind of motivates you to still get your miles in?
I've been running for well over 20 years. I just love it. I mean, most of my runs are alone, but I've been running on the weekends, long runs with the same guys for a couple decades, and
Hmm.
I love the social aspect of it. I don't really train so I can run faster races. I'm competitive with myself. I'm not really competitive with other people. Some people are faster, some people are slower, so that doesn't drive me at all. Um, but I run races to train as opposed to the reverse. So I want to have some goal
Hmm.
to achieve, but I run probably more for psychological reasons and physiological reasons. Um, it just makes me feel good and feel happy.
Yeah. Yeah, the runner's high is a real thing, right?
Yes, for sure.
um, let's see. What do you talk about? So with your friends who you have run with for decades, are they also physicians, or did you meet them just through running, or?
We talk about one is a physician, one's not a physician. We talk about all manner of things. A lot of people don't run. They go, how could you possibly, talk while you run? But we're not, we're running at a casual pace and you can pretty much talk the whole time.
Mm-hmm.
So you just sort of talk about life, our families. We certainly talk about running, but it's such a great way to have social interaction and also do exercise at the same time. I run races with them occasionally. So it's just fun to have. And then, if you need to meet someone at 7 a.m., I mean, runners, 7 a.m. doesn't mean 7:10. It means 7 a.m. You're outside or you're meeting in a place and you're going out. And so there are so many times where I wouldn't want to do it alone, particularly the longer runs. Running 8 or 10 miles on your own is not a problem. Running 20 miles on your own, I find it a lot easier personally to do with friends.
For sure. Yeah. So, yeah, I asked this question to, oh no, I don't know if I've asked this to anybody I've interviewed on here yet, but did you have any races that you were signed up for that you now are just not going to run, or are you going to run virtually, or?
Yeah, I did. I had a 50K plus race, and I think it was Lake James. That was last month that I signed up for and can't do a Kings Mountain Marathon, which I ran last year, which I love. That's my kind of race, small race.
Yeah, I love it. I was supposed to run the
That was going
half
to be the end of it.
also.
You were going to do the half?
Yeah, I was going to do the half again. I just want to get better at that half because it's so
Yeah.
hard.
Um,
Um,
I love that race. So I was going to do that. What I might do this weekend is do my own little version of this. I don't remember where this race concept started. I think it started some guy's backyard in Tennessee, if I'm not mistaken. But this concept that when I mentioned Michael Wardian, the running, it's a 4.2 mile loop wherever it is, and you do it every
mhm.
hour in the hour. I don't know if you've heard of this concept.
Oh, yeah.
So this is where, and then basically the concept is you do it as long as you can do it. So Michael Wardian ended up running 262 miles.
Wow.
Um, but I was kind of thinking about doing that of every hour in the hour running 4.2 miles, and you can do it as fast or as slow as you want. But by the next hour, you got to line up and start doing it. So if you run it at 8 minutes a mile pace, then you have 25 minutes plus to sort of chill out. If you do it at 13-minute pace, you have a lot less time, and then kind of see how far you can run. Just kind of something to do for fun.
Yeah. And are you on Strava? Would you let any of our listeners follow you on Strava?
It's funny. I am not on Strava, but if my daughter, who's coming back into town, is a very good runner, and a buddy of mine, I think they are, so I could have them teach me.
Yeah, you should. It's fun.
Yeah. So I might do that.
Yeah, that'd be fun because people can cheer for you, and I don't know, it's real motivating, I feel like.
Right.
There's no pictures, no comparison, none of those rabbit holes to go down. You just look at people's routes and their laps. So, well, thanks so much for taking some time to talk to me today. It was really good to catch up with you. Thank you for all you're doing, and everybody you work with is doing to keep us as healthy as you can. Yeah, we really appreciate it.
Well, thank you. And just I want to put in a little plug. We had another event that we were going to do was my Heart Transplant Run, which was going to be, it was going to be last weekend, but obviously we canceled it. But that's a run that I've a fundraising effort that I started 2 years ago. So the first event was in November 2017, and I ran the 5 marathons on 5 consecutive days, and we raised about $40,000 for our heart transplant patients. So it's through Atrium Health. All the money goes directly to patients, and what I mean by that is for expenses that they can't afford, but are on direct healthcare, like you can't pay for hospitalization or something like that. But and so that was the first year, and last year we did a different iteration of it. We were going to do our 3rd iteration in November, but we're going to do that sometime in the fall, and it's a great way to get people out. I have patients come. It's not a race. We do them at Calpine Park and have people walk, run, do whatever they want for an hour, and it raises money for our patients.
Yeah, maybe you can send me some details about that, and I could maybe include it in this link or whatever.
Definitely.
Awesome. Well, thanks so much for taking time to talk to us, Dr. Frank. It was great to speak to you.
You as well, Lexi. Thanks so much.
Yeah. Have a great day.
You too. Bye-bye.
Thanks. Bye. Hey, so I hope you really enjoyed that talk with Dr. Frank. I just think he's so cool. I love talking to smart people, especially when it comes to physiology and food. We got to touch on ketogenic diet again. So anyway, I didn't get to do a cheers with him. I'm not sure if he drinks sparkling water. I probably should have asked him what his thoughts are on long-term effects of drinking lots of sparkling water. Anyway, so I'll cheers to him. Social distance style, I guess. So this is my newest AHA flavor that I love. Orange and grapefruit. It's so refreshing. You totally have to get it. It's still always on sale. All right. So good. Okay, I hope you have a great week and 6 feet apart.